Hey booktube, welcome back to my channel and to another book haul. And it's not a fantasy book haul, it is in fact primarily a sci-fi book haul. Lockdown has truly done a number on me. Yes, if you know anything about me and my channel, I am predominantly a fantasy reader, and specifically like high fantasy, adult fantasy. I don't dislike sci-fi, I just don't typically tend to stray into the sci-fi genre. And just to clarify, a lot of the books on this list, while most of them are sci-fi, I think like more than half of these are science fiction. Some of them are kind of just like thriller or paranormal or that sort of thing. So they're not all sci-fi, but I don't think any of them are fantasy. But for the majority, they're sci-fi. So yeah, it's gonna feel really weird to haul a bunch of books and not a single one of them, to my knowledge, is a fantasy in any way. Like this is a first. So with that said, I'm just gonna get hauling. So the first 4 books in my haul actually all come from the same series, and it should come as no surprise to you that that is the Murderbot series by Martha Wells. So this is books 2, 3, 4 and 5. I recently read book 1 and absolutely loved it, and so I say recently, it was one of the last books I read, but I read it in February. But I absolutely loved it. I completely fell in love with the character of Murderbot, who is like the titular character, and they're just a little anxious, kind of moody, just anxiety-ridden android. And that just immediately sunk right down to my heart. I was just like, yes, I need this. So I went out and bought all the other copies available at the time, and I think there is a 6th book on the way. So here today I have book 2, Artificial Condition, book 3, Rogue Protocol, book 4, Exit Strategy, and book 5, which is actually like a proper novel length. It's a bit of a chunkier one, and this is Network Effect. So yeah, if you are into sort of like, it's like a very chill kind of sci-fi, it's very humorous and very character driven, and you think you would enjoy reading from the perspective of a severely socially anxious android, then I highly recommend picking up the first book, All Systems Red, and yeah, I cannot wait to eventually get onto these. So the next book I'm hauling, which you can probably already see here on top, the yellow might give it away, is Recursion by Blake Crouch. And like, can we just admire how like shiny this is? I'm not sure you're gonna get the full effect, but like it's shiny, but like in a holographic rainbow sort of way. So I don't really know very much about this book, but I did haul one of Blake Crouch's other works. I still haven't read that one yet. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But yeah, I've heard a few other booktubers talk about this one, and I think out of the two, I think this one might actually be the one that interests me more. I think the kind of setup for this, again, I say I don't know very much. I like to go into, especially something like this, I like to go in as blind as possible, but I think it's focusing on this thing called false memory syndrome, where people are discovering that they have like memories that like aren't theirs or that shouldn't belong to them. I'm not sure whether they're real memories or somebody else's memories or artificial memories or whatever, but yeah, people are having these memories that should not be there. I think that's like the most basic, it's not even a plot at this point, that's just kind of like a tiny aspect of plot that I've given you. But that's more or less all I know about this book. I am very interested in kind of like psychological sci-fi, and I feel like this is gonna have like maybe like a bit of like a thrillery aspect to it, in terms of, I don't know, it's very short, and so I figure stuff that tends to be like shorter sci-fi tends to be like really punchy, and so I'm really hoping that I enjoy this one. The magpie in me is getting mesmerised by the cover. Okay, so the next book in my haul is actually a pretty famous one, and it's one that I've been meaning to read for like, I want to say it could even be like 10 years. Somebody that I was really good friends with at the time recommended this to me. They said like it was one of the best things that they'd ever read. I even remember where they were when they recommended it to me, which is really weird. Like, that's never left my brain. And that is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Again, like, how pretty and like shiny, like I love the shine. I will say I ordered a first edition of this book. This is not a first edition, but yeah, this is like a very weird, a very interesting book. I feel like this is one of those that I think most people have already heard of, and I think the reading of this book, like the actual medium, the way that it's printed, I know there's like some pretty odd ways that this is printed inside, and that enhances like the experience of actually reading it. I'm not sure if they were meant to be like pullouts or inserts. I think maybe they were in the original, which is the version that I tried to buy. I'm not 100% sure. It's hard to find info, because some of the info on this book is very meta and like not actually factually real world correct. It's weird. But I don't know much about the plot, but I know like the general setup is that there is a house and it is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Like if you measure it, the measurements do not line up. It is somehow larger inside than it is outside. And I know that doesn't sound very interesting, that might sound very mundane, especially for someone like me who reads a lot of fantasy, but whenever anything weird is sort of like grounded in a world that's meant to be realistic and make sense, I really like those sort of things, and I'm really hoping that, I don't want to spoil myself, but this has like printed braille and maybe Morse code and stuff like that, and I know that like the printing, I think there are some pages that just have like one word on them, or the printing is like weird upside down in a spiral, stuff like that. So I think the experience of actually reading this one is going to be like the most interesting thing about it. Not to say that the plot probably isn't good, but yeah, I know that this got like a lot of hype just because of like the weird way. It's like an experience to actually physically sit and read it, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to with this one. Another one on my list, and I think this one is maybe more of like a thriller type. I'm not entirely sure what genre to put some of these books in. If it's not fantasy, I don't know how to categorize it. But that book is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. And I just ordered this standard hardback secondhand, and it comes with like, again, like look at like the amazing, I hope it's picking up, but like the letters on the front are like super shiny and holographic. I just thought that they were like white printed letters from like the book listing, but it reminds me of like, you know, when you get stuff like film and they get like that kind of like oily shine on them. It is that sort of oily shine, and this is also apparently a signed copy. Yep, there we go, signed copy. I did not order it knowing it was a signed copy. It did not say signed copy. I just bought this because another booktuber, and I can't remember who, and I'm kicking myself, but it was months and months and months ago, another booktuber I heard talk about this and just kind of say that it was like one of their favourite books and that it was really good, and I, for some reason, just wanted to pick it up. So I think the kind of general gist of the plot in this book, again, I never know much about plots, but I think I kind of know this one. There is a very famous film director who's I think also very controversial, and his daughter may have like featured in some of his films, I'm not sure, but she is missing, presumed dead, or she was murdered or something like that. She's either missing or dead. What happened to her and whether it had something to do with him and his like filmmaking process or whatever, and I think this follows like someone looking into it and trying to get to the bottom of like what happened to this girl. And again, this is another one that's written like, again, I don't really want to spoil myself, but yeah, it has like some like documents in there, so like some of the things, some of the medium that is actually going to be investigated in the book. I guess maybe like text logs or email logs, internet databases, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, there's like, it's kind of like a mixed media-esque looking thing. Again, a little bit like House of Leaves. You can kind of see why I put these in the same haul. And yet something about this just kept my attention. I don't know what it was, but I kept thinking that at some point I wanted to pick up this book, and whenever I get that feeling about a book that is not fantasy, I kind of have to pick it up, because I don't know what it is. If I'm drawn to a book that does not have like magic and dragons in it, then something about it must be interesting enough. Like I need to read it. So yeah, this is one that I keep seeing it and I keep wanting to get to it, but the way my brain is at the moment, I'm not reading a lot right now, but I really do want to get to this at some point soon. If this were like a TV show or a movie or a documentary, I would binge the hell out of it. I love like true crime stuff and unsolved stuff and like paranormal stuff and like internet mysteries, and I love that sort of thing. I love it so much. I binge so many YouTube videos, and this is giving me that sort of vibe. Maybe that's why I can't let it out of my head. I just want to know. So yeah, I think I'm pretty excited about this one. Okay, the next two books in my haul, probably also something that is going to go on my main channel, but they are actual written books and not manga. They are manga spin-offs, and those are the two Death Note novellas. So there's Death Note Another Note and Death Note L Change the World. So if you don't know about me, Death Note is my favourite manga ever. And I'm not just saying that because it's like the one that everyone tells you to read. There's a reason everyone tells you to read it. It's been my favourite manga since I was like 11 or 12 or whenever I first read it. I used to like save all my pocket money as a kid and like save up, and like once or twice a month I would go all the way into town and find like the one manga shop we have in town, and I would buy 1 or 2 copies of Death Note, and I would come home and I'd read them all in one night, and like that is such an important part of my childhood, and I love Death Note and everything to do with it. The anime, it's alright. The manga's better. I'm not going to talk too much about anime and manga here because I have a whole other channel for that. But yes, these spin-off novels, and weirdly I've never read them. I'm not sure I can talk about these without necessarily spoiling Death Note the manga. And I don't want to do that because, again, I'm here to talk about books, but if you do like manga, Death Note is definitely one of the best ones to try. There's a reason that it has the kind of reputation that it does, because it was just so good. But yeah, I can't talk about the plots of these, but Death Note is basically like a cat and mouse police chase sort of thing with a sprinkling of paranormal thrown in there. And I don't know why, but in manga I only ever want to read about like police and detectives and that sort of thing. I hate books about that, but manga, for some reason, makes my brain happy. So yeah, I finally decided to pick these up physically. There is also the Death Note one-shot that I really want to read, but currently it's only digital, and I hate digital. I'll see what I can do about that. But for now, yes, getting my Death Note fix. Okay, on to the last two books, and this, I think, is the biggest book I have to haul. And honestly, this one, like, I went back and forth about whether I was actually going to buy this book. I know pretty much next to nothing about the plot of this book, and this was an author buy. And it's because this is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. Oh, and look at that, we match. It's a good day to have blue hair. So, yeah, when I was a kid, Eragon was one of my favourite books ever. It is to this day one of my favourite books ever. I know that if I went back and read it, I would, even as a kid, I was like, this sounds like, some of the names sounded a bit like Lord of the Rings. But when I was a kid, I was a bit like, maybe all fantasy is meant to sound a bit like Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings is kind of like the granddaddy of fantasy. Turns out it was just heavily plagiarized. And I feel like because he was a kid, he just kind of assumed, I feel like he just read or watched Lord of the Rings and thought, this is what fantasy is and I have to do it like this. And so did it a little bit too much like that, but with dragons. But still, it was one of my favourite childhood books ever, and it holds a very special place in my heart. I have a very mixed relationship because on the one hand, my adult brain is super critical of Eragon and all the things wrong with it. However, on a personal taste level, I loved it and I have very, very fond memories of the book. So I feel like I have like this perfect balance. As a result, when it was revealed that Christopher Paolini was coming out with a completely new story, and a sci-fi no less, yeah, I had to pick this up and see what it was about. I guess he's obviously writing from like a different place. It's been so many years, he's obviously like an adult now, and this is a completely different setup for a book. So I'm interested to see if I actually like his writing style and his, I guess, just his writing and ideas in general, now that he's like developed much more as a writer and aged and has like so much more like, I guess, experience and knowledge. And this is like a chunky book. Like this is not a small undertaking. I just want to see if one of my favourite childhood authors writing as a very young person, now being an adult writing something completely different, also appeals to me. Yeah, so this was completely an author buy. I wasn't sure whether I would be interested in this. I really don't know the plot or the synopsis. I just kind of want to go in completely blind, if I'm honest. I don't know what kind of sci-fi this is, so I'm hoping that this is one that I will love. And again, I don't know if you noticed, this does have a sticker on it and it's one of those that you can't get off. So I will have to buy another edition of this book and take off the dust jacket and put it over this dust jacket at some point in the future, because I cannot be having, you don't need to tell me from the international best-selling author of Eragon, I know that so well, but like it's printed onto the goddamn book, which is really annoying because this is a signed special edition. Yeah, this edition comes with like a ribbon bookmark. The ends are like this super unique design. So yeah, it's a very pretty edition. I just wish it didn't. Why? Okay, so now we are on to the last book in my haul, and this is, it's a feast for the eyes. It's just the most beautiful thing. And it is, of course, possibly the most famous science fiction book ever written. It is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Oh, can we just look at this edition? Yeah, this is the Ethereal Visions version of this book. This is like their special edition, and this was very expensive. But can we just for a second just like admire like the shine and the design of this book? Seriously, every like aspect of this book is so gorgeous, and it has like this faux worn design on it. So this is all printed on the back and it's textured as well. It's so gorgeous, it's so lovely. But like it has like little fake spill stains and scratches and scuff marks on here, and I think that's a depiction of the monster at the bottom. And yeah, I love this cover so much. It's so pretty, like with this like gilded leaves. Oh, there is the skull literally consuming Frankenstein's name. I cannot get over this book. Yes, and of course it has like these gilded golden page edges. So much thought was put into the design of this book, and I love Frankenstein. I've read it before. I had to read it critically, so like I've enjoyed it from the perspective of just like a goth wanting to read like a goth novel, and I've later enjoyed it from the perspective of having to like actually literally dissect the book. And I don't know if I have my like English class copy still. I probably do somewhere. It's one of the all-time classics. It's like such an important book in this genre. So I just wanted to have this fantastic edition, this like really beautiful edition of a truly classic piece of literature. There is also an edition of Dracula that matches this, and I'm so tempted to buy it. I do have a very nice edition of Dracula already, which is like a tiny cute little pocket version, but I am tempted. So this book is partially illustrated. It has these sort of like chapter headers at the start of every chapter or volume, but let me find you one of the illustrations because they are really gorgeous. I say gorgeous, this is kind of a gross illustration, but we are reading Frankenstein, so so yeah, occasionally the book will have like these beautiful sort of like Art Nouveau looking like full colour illustrations of, I guess, an important scene from the book. So I think this is the monster, I assume, waking up for the first time. And yeah, there's a couple of those in there. They have also put in like these tissue paper inserts just to like protect the artwork even more, which again is really, really thoughtful. So every time there is one of those illustrations, it is protected by like, you can take the tissue paper out if you want. I'm gonna leave it in because I trust in the protective powers of a very thin piece of paper. Would it be a proper sci-fi haul if I didn't haul like just the most well-known sci-fi of all time? And I want to say it's not technically the first sci-fi of all time. It's not even technically the first sci-fi ever written by a woman, but it is generally the one that we recognise as like the first sci-fi. The fact that it's so goddamn goth as well, I love it. I love it. It's chef's kiss. I love it. So obviously I've always enjoyed Frankenstein, and yeah, it's a classic. It's a goth classic on top of that. And I needed to have this beautiful edition. I don't know how many more times I can say that. How much more can I say about this book that isn't just, oh my god, look at it? Because look at it. Yeah, I'm a simple magpie at heart. We all know this about me by now. If I see shiny book, I buy shiny book. Even if shiny book costs like £100, I still buy shiny book. I work for a living. I can decide what to waste my money on, and today it's this. Yeah, so that was my haul, including, oh my god, yes, here we go. Yeah, not a single fantasy book on here. It feels very strange. It feels very strange to not talk about like knights or swords or magic or dragons. But you know, a bitch has got to branch out every once in a while, and this is just one of those times. So thank you guys so much for watching. I am gonna have to struggle to take a thumbnail now. Do let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this haul, if you're thinking of picking any of these books up, or if you have any particular opinions about any of these books. Please don't spoil anything for me, but like feel free to let me know if you think that there's something here that you think I really will enjoy. If you're more of an avid fantasy fan like myself, then do remember to check out the rest of my channel, because most of that, it's like 99.9% fantasy. This is like a surprising one-off, but if you're into fantasy, then I promise I have so much more in the way of fantasy books and fantasy hauls and reviews, so maybe have a look at what else I've done. Or not, you know, whatever. So yeah, that's about it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and maybe I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out, BookTube!